All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Parent and Community Leadership Alliance School Board Candidate Forum. I want to start out by letting you know that even though we are on the North Clackamas School District's YouTube channel, the North Clackamas School District does not sponsor or endorse any candidates. They are hosting this forum for the PCLA as a public service. So I will let you know a little bit about the Parent and Community Leadership Alliance. The PCLA is a volunteer-driven committee that works to engage the community in conversations and create partnerships that enhance the quality of North Clackamas schools. We take a solution-based approach to challenges that are presented to us and work as a superintendent's advisory committee to support both the community and our schools. Though the PCLA has been around longer, this is the 6th year we have hosted school board forums, as we believe in the importance of the school board and have sought to engage the community in these elections. We also host legislative forums and other forums pertinent to our school's community. I'm Stephanie Rose, Vice Chair of the PCLA and member of the Legislative and Funding Committee. I'll be the moderator for the evening. Representing the PCLA with me is Monica D.P. Antonio, who is chair of the Legislative and Funding Committee and will be our timekeeper for the night. Kathy Harrison is also a member of the PCLA and volunteer coordinator for North Clackamas Schools. She is joining us tonight for technical support. We also have Edward Villa, who is community liaison for North Clackamas Spanish community and will be interpreting for us tonight. Again, the North Clackamas School District does not sponsor or endorse any candidates, and they're doing this as a public service. The PCLA works diligently to secure commitments to attend this forum from all candidates. We understand that sometimes candidates have other commitments and are unable to attend. We are greatly appreciative of the 6 candidates who are able to join us tonight. Each of the candidates will now have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and answer the question, what do you envision as the legacy you will leave behind during your time on school board? I will ask each of the candidates to again have Monica pinned and watch for that 30-second green card, 15-second yellow card, and the red card to end your time. Please wait for me to thank the previous candidate and call on you before you start. And with that, Tori McVeigh, you will go first.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hi there, my name is Tori McVeigh, and I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to share my story and hopefully earn your vote. I'm running for re-election on the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors, and this will be my 3rd election in this bipartisan position. When I envision my legacy, what I would like to leave behind when I'm all done with the school board is that we have a district that continues to improve graduation rates year over year, and we've aggressively closed achievement gaps for those that are most vulnerable. That we continue to have the highest attendance rate among the largest school districts. This tells us kids like our work, how we do our work, and that they want to be here. That the district is in a better financial position when I leave than when I started in 2013. And then we attract and retain the best educators and staff. And not only are they the gold standard of role models, but they also look like our students. That we really prepare kids for college and career readiness, not just say it. And I don't think we're there yet. The world is changing, and schools, not just ours, have been slow to respond. We have green energy, we have lack of social skills, we have technology changing, we have the methods of learning that are always changing, and we have lots of jobs that we'll either have less or more of. They're forever changing. That I was known as a family and community advocate, and that I would take a stand even if it was unpopular. And that we have the same superintendent tomorrow that we will start with today, and that's Dr. Shay James. And lastly, that I'm respected by my peers, by my community, and North Clackamas School District as a whole, and that the board was drama-free and we got really good work done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tori. All right, we will move on now to Kathy.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy Way, and I am rerunning again for the North Clackamas School Board, position 5, and this will be my second time running again. I am running because I believe in the power of public education in transforming lives. I was an English language learner and was the first in my family to graduate. My family has lived in this district for 20 years, and I have helped raise my 2 younger siblings while my parents worked long hours. We need school leaders who can represent all of our families in the district, from those living in multi-generational households to single parents raising children to older siblings supporting younger ones. We need leaders who can help all of our families succeed. I also have direct experience in our public schools and have spent over 10 years professionally working with students from diverse backgrounds. I've established after-school support groups that empowered young women and girls into STEM programs and have worked closely with teachers and counselors to prepare students to graduate. And I understand that it takes community partnerships, collaboration, and creativity to provide our students with a well-rounded educational experience. Being a first-generation student, I know the importance of getting that high school diploma. And over the past 4 years, we have worked hard to increase our graduation rates, as well as expand CTE programs and course offerings. And I'm committed to creating more programs that meet the needs of our students in the 21st century. I have demonstrated what success can look like when our parents, teachers, and communities and district leaders all come together to champion the success of all of our students. The legacy that I want to leave behind is that of representation. I want our students to see themselves reflected in our leadership as individuals who can change the world. And I want them to see themselves in our textbooks, our school buildings, and in every decision that we make together as a school board. I ask for your vote and your support so that we can achieve this vision and this legacy together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kathy. And now, John, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm John Simonson, and I'm running for North Clackamas School Board, position number 5. A little bit about my background. I'm married, and we're the parents of 2 students currently attending North Clackamas High School. I have my master's of business administration and a bachelor of science in business administration. I'm a proven problem solver and a leader with more than 20 years experience in business management, and I've managed union employees for more than 10 years. I am an assistant football coach at Clackamas High School, the treasurer for BSA Troop 33, and previously for several years I was the Cub Master for Pack 32, which met at Vern Duncan Elementary. As far as my legacy, it's what you leave behind. What I'm focused on is preparing our students to succeed in the real world, where they have the skills and abilities required to do just that. It seems like the primary drive in high school these days has become to send children to college, and I'm not opposed to that. As I already mentioned, I have my master's and my bachelor's, but roughly 2/3 of the students head off to college, and after 6 years, 1/3 of those don't have a degree. This means approximately only 44% of students have a degree by the age of 24, and a good amount of those don't end up working in their field of study. So what about the other 56%? How are we focusing on them? We have this massive shortage of people qualified for work in the trades and on other industries. We need to focus on those by partnering with experts in the industries. And we're already doing some of that at South Schellenberg, but it needs to be expanded with more opportunities. They have programs that students can't get into because there aren't enough offerings. This, of course, gets into funding. Every legislative session, we have this budget dance with the legislature, which we will most likely always have to continue, but we need to see what other opportunities we can leverage through partnerships with business and industry. I appreciate your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Mitzi, you will be up next.
Hi, thank you PCLA for this opportunity. My name is Mitzi Bauer and I'm running for re-election for position 6 on the North Clackamas School Board. I'm here tonight to answer community questions asked for your vote. I spent the early years of my career as a high school math teacher and then moved on to a rewarding career as one of the few women mathematicians at Bonneville. Our children attended grades 1 through 12 and our granddaughter just started here. I spent years working as classroom volunteer, PTA, Stanford Children, and the foundation. I have served on many district committees prior to and during my tenure on the board, as well as on the bond and levy committees for the school district. If reelected, I plan to spend the next 4 years continuing the work I've devoted my life to. I will work tirelessly I will work tirelessly to make sure every North Clackamas student has access to an outstanding education, and I will do this by continuing to engage and inspire our community in building a strong network of advocates and leaders to continue the fight for stable and adequate funding and equity for all students. I envision my legacy as first putting into place new up-to-date classrooms and safer school buildings. My consistent, successful volunteer work to help pass bonds and levies has had an impact on our community, delivering new, safe learning environments for teachers and students, and furthering this impact and understanding of budgets to the community during my time on the board. I'm proud of the results of lobbying in Salem for our fair share of stable and adequate school funding, and getting money for our ballot measures for CTE, vocational classes, and for preparing kids for college and career. But most of all, the parents and children that I have impacted and encouraged to be leaders as they stepped up in our community and stood up for all schools in Salem and our region. This is so important because this generation of school parent leaders will identify and support the next, and we can retain our excellent school district by speaking up and being involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mitzi. And Lars, if you can please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Lars Best. I'm running for North Clackamas School Board, position number 6. I've lived here since I was 3 years old. I moved to the district in 1976. I attended Batten Elementary, moved to Rao Junior High, and graduated from Milwaukee High School in 1991. After my time at Milwaukee, I went to Clackamas Community College for a year. And through my path, I ended up joining the U.S. Coast Guard, following my father's footsteps. I am running to be an advocate for the tradespeople. I'm a journeyman electrician with the IBEW, and my legacy I would like to see is something that anybody in our community can attain, a middle-class income. And success in their life, regardless of their gender or race. With the Coast Guard, I was able to get a GI Bill. It supported me through the first few years of my apprenticeship. It also provided me an opportunity to purchase homes with VA loans. I've been very blessed with how my life has gone. The other legacy is because of my passion for the kids. Sorry, I stumbled on my tongue a little bit. I have 2 daughters that are first and second graders in Happy Valley Elementary, and seeing the struggles that they've gone through, I would really like to be an advocate for the children's mental health. So my biggest concern is just where are they going to be when they come back to school? The kids will be coming back to school. We need to address issues before they get too intense. And I think I'm the person to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lars. Tara, if you would like to introduce yourself now.
Thank you, PCLA, for hosting tonight. My name is Tara Nelson, and I'm running for board position 6. The legacy I envision leaving behind with my time on the school board is our district, the proven success and accomplishments and achievements that they have done. I am that child, now adult, a product of the district standards. My sister and I grew up in the North Clackamas district. In fact, she was lumberjill throughout high school through our Schillenberg CTE program of forestry during a time when Land Lab had forests and ponds. My children also participated in the district's ELC preschool. That being said, I'm married with 2 kiddos actively attending school in our district. I've always been a servant in the community, volunteering in our schools, whether it be the classrooms, bus and lunch buddy, the 2008 local levy bond, PTA, Dougie Center, Girl Scouts, and other nonprofits. My grandparents, parents, and myself grew up on the lower socioeconomic side. I am the first in my family at the age of 28 to earn a 4-year university degree while in the workforce. Education is important to me. I understand the struggle, support, and value needed to accomplish such knowledge, to influence ourselves and community. I have a passion for people and for kids. I can bring new perspective and creativity to our board and district. Besides getting schools open on campus 5 days a week, attention to our CTE, special education, kids adjusting socially, emotionally, and mentally to campus life, the transition of a new superintendent, our achievement gaps, learning loss, or unfinished learning, equity, equality, finances, fiscal accountability. I'm excited to be part of a district legacy that has already passed down traditions of enthusiasm, volunteerism, compassion, acceptance, unity, and pride. There is great reward in giving to a cause greater than oneself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara. All right, thank you everyone for introducing yourself. And now we'll go on to the question and answer portion of the evening. This will take up the rest of the night. We used a Google form to collect questions from the community, and a committee reviewed the questions and picked 10, which represented the clear themes that emerged from the questions that were asked by the community. They also represent our district geographically. We have 8 questions on the agenda, but we'll ask more if time allows. Due to the number of candidates, we have a very strict time schedule. For each of the first 7 questions, candidates will have 90 seconds to answer and will be signaled with Monica as the timekeeper again. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer our final and closing question. The questions will be answered by the candidates round robin as they are listed on the Clackamas County Elections website, basically the order that you just saw of introduction. A candidate is allowed to pass a question if they do not wish to answer. And with that, let's get started. So our first question for the night comes from Dean in the Adrian Nelson neighborhood. And he asks, this district is large, spanning from the Willamette River to across the Carver Bridge. It is also ethnically, culturally, and socioeconomically diverse. What steps will you take to ensure you are engaging with and representing all the families in our district? Tori, we will have you start that one off.
Couldn't find my mute button. Thank you for the question. Yes, it is very geographically diverse and economically diverse. I live on the west side, and I can tell you that for years we have our community has felt a divide right at the 205, and we need to work really hard to combat that and to get out in the community and to understand everyone's voice and to participate in PTOs and PTAs across the district. The district does a great job surveying families, and we need to dive into those surveys and understand the data and understand the verbatims that we get. The verbatims are rich, but there's nothing like eyeball-to-eyeball conversations that can happen in PTOs and PTAs, sporting events, grocery store conversations, neighborhood parks, walks, what have you. Anytime we can engage the community to better understand it, because we are representing the community, we need to take that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tori. All right, Kathy, if you would like to answer.
Yes, this is an excellent question. And as someone who has been living on the east side for close to 2 decades, I've seen a lot of those diverse and demographic changes that was referenced in the question. How I want to approach this is really through the spirit of building community. We know that we are building Adrian C. Nelson right now, high school, and it's been really great to see actually our current Clackamas High School administrators and staff working in partnership and collaboration with the incoming staff of Adrian C. Nelson, so that there isn't, competition or divisiveness, but that we are essentially transferring our values in our district to the next building that we're building. So I think it's really great to see that smooth transition happening between our district's leadership. I think it's also really important to ask families directly, and as well as our young people, right? What do they like to see in their programming? For some folks, it might be football or softball or traditional sports, but for others, it might be language classes that we can establish, or cultural groups or cultural dances, for example. So I think we should ask families and communities themselves how they would like to see being engaged and involved. And last but not least, I think education brings all of us together. And again, this goes back to serving all of our students and all of our families who may not look like us or who may not come from the same backgrounds, but we need to make sure we have a safe and inclusive environment. Thank you.
I had myself muted. All right, thank you, Kathy. John, if you would like to answer the question.
Yes, I'd like to answer the question. So what steps would I take to engage with all the families in the district? I was thinking about that, and something I've been told, somebody told me this the other day when I was just talking to them about the election, and they said that when they see my responses to questions that are asked, I try and provide thoughtful and well-reasoned answers explaining my position. I try to, if somebody asks you a question, typically they got to get over the barrier of, sometimes there's a little hesitancy to even ask. And so if somebody's getting to the point where they will ask, you want to respond to them with a thoughtful answer, considering all aspects of the question. And I try to, make myself available to listening. I'm very conscientious to reply to all my emails people send me. There's actually a couple that have been on my mind that I need to reply to that it kind of bugs me that I haven't replied to them. So, and lastly, I'll try to do this and serve the whole community because I try to focus on what unites us and what brings us together, and trying to be a moderate voice in the community, one that anybody would feel comfortable speaking with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Mitzi, if you would like to answer the question.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. Yes, we do have quite a diverse community. 68 languages spoken, 38% free and reduced. And there's so many, it's a rich cultural community that we have, and we need to continue to celebrate all of the diversity. But the way I connect is, I don't have kids currently in school, but that frees me up to focus on all children. So I have a little bit more time. I am retired. And every year I try to get to every school. I don't always quite finish. There's 31 schools, but I go to them in some capacity. I go to PTA, PTOs. I've gone to auctions. I go to sporting events, music events, but make myself available. And then as I've worked through the bonds and the levies, I've made a lot of really good, close relationships, and people feel free to call and ask questions. So I would encourage, and the PCLA was a group that I was involved with from the beginning. Before that was Stand for Children. We were very active in advocating, getting people educated. I think it's very important when we visit, and when I visit PTAs, PTOs, I tell them what's going on the board, but also resources that are available, like our Wichita Center and our student-based health centers that we're so proud of. After the bond, we will have one in every one of our traditional high schools. So it's about getting out, being approachable, and getting the information to our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mitzi. Lars, if you would like to answer the question.
I just want to say thank you for the current school board members. I really appreciate it as a parent getting the surveys. I do think that it really makes my voice feel heard. I would definitely be an advocate if I was elected to continue that, want to continue that legacy. I'm being a tradesperson, a blue collar worker. I would hope that, especially on the socioeconomic lower side, that I would be an approachable person that somebody can talk to. I did end up getting my associate's degree, but it took me about 20 years. So it was a while. With that, I think I would just be one, I'm approachable. I'm a pretty simple person. I don't really have that much to hide, especially when it comes, I do have an adult son that went to Clackamas High School. So, I mean, I understand how excellent the North Clackamas School District is for college graduates or for people going to college. He's done really well for himself. My daughters are excelling in Happy Valley Elementary. But once again, I would like to be that voice for the blue collar worker, and being able to, if somebody wanted to talk to me, I can show them a path out of their socioeconomic situation that they're currently in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lars. Tara, if you would like to answer the question.
Yes, being such a large district, growing up in it, I've seen the changes. I've seen the boundary changes, the socioeconomics, especially being on that lower side. The opportunities that are available, whether it be in sports, fine arts, it needs to be brought together more equal. I think with resources that we have within our communities, whether it be fundraising, community help, it needs to be something that's more level and on an equal field for everyone. Also, communication, I would like to see it more uniformed. You go to one school's website, it has different information than another, and it doesn't matter which grade level, elementary, middle, or high school. So I think the ease of communication, transparency, being able to ask questions, having site councils available at all campuses. I don't think that's something that's in practice right now. In addition, having this PCLA form tonight, which is great, having more exposure to that. And again, that open communication and transparency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara. All right, before we move on to the next question, just want to take a minute to remind that we do have interpreters in the room. And I know that these are big questions and there's a lot to answer. But if we could all be a bit conscious of how quickly we're speaking, I know I'm guilty of it myself, so we can make sure that the interpreters have adequate time to interpret for those that need it. All right, so question number 2. This is from Michelle in the Adrian Nelson neighborhood. And she asks, what do you feel is the biggest issue you need to help solve for the schools to be the most successful? And she has specifically asked that you do not include COVID, but focus on some other issue. And we will go ahead and start that one off with Kathy.
Thank you. Okay, everyone can hear me. Okay, and I'll try to speak slower for the interpreter. So thank you, Stephanie, for that reminder. You know, I think one of the biggest issues that has been facing public education is just stable, adequate school funding. We know that, we have passed successful bond and levy measures, but as a state, we need to do better to make sure that we are funding at a level that provides, again, opportunities for all of our students, lowering class sizes, and the specific supports that we know that students need around counseling, mental health support, and other social services. So I will continue and keep advocating with our state legislatures to make sure that the general fund has, again, money available for public education that can go directly into our classrooms. And I just want to, again, speak onto the success of our bonds and levies, but we need to keep advocating. We need to tell the stories of why, these dollars matter in our classrooms. We know that East Side schools in particular have been growing. Our enrollment numbers are skyrocketing, and we need to make sure that we have plans in place where we can continue to, again, lower class sizes and make sure that students have all of the support that they need. So I think our biggest tackle is really our state's budget around education. And I just want to thank the PCLA.
You can wrap up, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, John, if you would like to answer the question.
What do I feel the biggest issue is for us to solve to help our schools be successful? I alluded to it in my introduction. We need to support not just the students headed to college, but we need to support those headed directly to the workforce or to vocational schools. We have this huge shortage of people for in high skilled careers, but we need to make sure kids are steered in that direction, or if they're not going to college, or some prefer not to go to college. So my son's thinking about being an electrician, but he needs the opportunity to experience that in high school. And I think we do this by further expanding our CTE and partnering with local businesses and other organizations, trade schools, private companies in a manner that we can utilize their resources, because we have a shared goal, and that is to have successful students who are able to provide for themselves in life with family wage jobs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Mitzi, would you like to answer the question?
Yes, thank you. I would have to agree with Kathy that the school budget, the Common School Fund, is probably the biggest fight that we've had year after year. And especially now that after we've had this student success passage and we are all thinking 2 billion for 2 years, we should be okay. But that's not what's happening. And also the one-time funds that are coming are earmarked for needs that we had before the pandemic. And the money we're getting now from state and federal is how to get to support our children as they come back into the classroom. If we have those dollars, though, then we will be able to also look at reducing class size and add more classes to Save in Schellenberg. Yes, John's right. That's really an important program. We have 3,500 people that are students that are taking classes, but we do have 18 programs of study. It's the largest in the state, and we're very proud of it. Student Success and Measure 98 have allowed us to add 3 or 4 classes each year to those programs. So again, we can continue that with stable and adequate funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mitzi. Lars, would you like to answer?
As far as for funding, I think the one thing that I can add to the mix is there's a lot of really good people that understand the funding and the budgets. Before I went back to work straight back to work as an electrician in the field, I had my own electrical contracting company for about 10 years. I was a union contractor, so I hired union workers. I understand how union contracts work. One thing that I noticed doing a lot of public works projects is some of the language that's written into contracts that's exclusionary to smaller contractors. So there would be times that I was not allowed to bid on a project because the contracts were written so that maybe only 2 or 3 different people could participate in the bidding process. So the contribution I think that I can make as far as financially is a review of those contracts. I'm pretty smart with them. The other thing I'd really like to see is if we do have the funding. My daughter went to El Puente before the COVID started. I think when we talk about accessibility, it was such a nice opportunity for her to be able to have a different experience with different kids than that are in our neighborhood. Those are 2 things that I would really like to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Tara, would you like to answer the question?
I think one of the biggest issues, again, goes back to communication. Parents in the community, they want to have a voice. We want to encourage them to have a voice, to participate. With that being said, some items with priorities, curriculum, what's being taught in the classroom, what's available for each, the fundamentals, the 3 R's. So I think that communication, engaging with parents and families, maybe such as a thing as student summits or parent packs where we can support that parent leadership and development, potentially rotate those groups to meet with the school board at different times. Just again, that communication, that responsiveness, being able to involve, be heard, felt heard, and work together as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara. Tori, would you like to answer?
Yeah, I agree with lots of comments that were said, in particular around funding. I don't know anyone on this Zoom that wouldn't like to make more money, and things cost more, and that's the same with schools. So that will be a constant battle, unfortunately. What I think that the school we need now is community. Our community, the state, the federal systems, have never been more polarized than they are today. And schools are the backbone of strong neighborhoods. And we have the opportunity to be the great equalizer in our community as a public school. And when I say strong neighborhood schools, I mean schools that have rigor, they have involved families, they have hope, they have fun, they have traditions. And when you have that coming together, polarization can dissipate. And that's what I think we have an opportunity in front of us to get rid of this polarization. Maybe I'm naive, but I think we have an opportunity from our elementary to our middle to our high to get rid of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tori. All right, we will move on to question number 3. This comes from Stacy in the Putnam area. And the question is, what experiences have you had that show you know how to help bring people together, even when they might disagree? And we will have John start this one off.
When I think about ways that what experiences I've had that bring people together when they disagree, I think about work a lot when we have a problem. We have a very diverse group of people that I work with, and to get people to come together, it's all about getting people face to face, which is kind of hard these days. And it's getting easier, but getting them face to face in a room where they can talk, discuss, realize that people are, we're just all people. A lot of times, if you see someone in the distance, people have a tendency to judge people negatively. But when you realize and get to know each other together, just like Tori was just talking about, people will come together, they'll realize their common ground, and they will start to agree on stuff, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Mitzi, would you like to answer?
Yes, thanks, Stephanie. I can think of a couple examples. At my work at Bonneville Power, there was a need for childcare on site, and we had a new building. Many of us young moms got together, and we were able to get the funding and establish and make the case, even though there was some resistance to that. It was quite a while ago, but we were able to do that. So I think selling the need, the idea, the inspiration, and then people will see how it helps not just them, but others. Looking at the big picture is kind of the way you bring people together. Other experiences I've had is on bond and levy. I would go out to the communities, accompanying the superintendent, trying to sell raising your taxes. And doing that can be pretty difficult for people. But once they get the education and again, understand the value of strong schools and how that grows your whole community and it attracts people and builds your economy, they were good at it. Each superintendent that I went out with, NASO, Mills, and Superintendent Utterback. Also, the PCLA is the group that we work with a lot. And on the board, we learn a lot of working together and respecting each other. We have one vote, you vote and you walk away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. Lars, would you like to answer?
This is a good one. I deal with these conflicts every day. I work in a position of field leadership, and we are building a data center as an example. Every morning at 8 o'clock, I have to go in with a bunch of people that want to get their way. We need to come together at 8:30 and have a path forward to meet our production goals for the day. So one thing that I've really tried to do is focus on a common goal. Most of the time, even if you disagree on some things, you can find common grounds that are goals or your objective. I always think about like on a search and rescue mission for the Coast Guard. You have a goal, you have a common mission. You're going to go out. You don't know if you're going to come back. You ask for volunteers. You want everybody to volunteer to go, regardless if you're best friends. You've developed that leadership with them. So one of the things that I really have a good opportunity from is that because of my trade, I have people coming from all over the country. So I really get a good opportunity to experience people that are not just from the Portland metropolitan area. I have guys coming from Texas, Wyoming. We have people coming from Alabama, and we need to learn how to work together and to get our job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Tara, would you like to answer?
I think my experience is the same as all of yours. Our daily life, whether it be with our kids, with our jobs, things need to be de-escalated, whether it be home arguments, work arguments. My personal experience with my profession has been in banking and customer service. Money is personal, time is personal, sometimes even more valuable than money. So with that, you have to listen, you have to gather information. That opportunity you have might only be a minute, and it might be the only minute you get. You're always on stage when you're interacting with someone else. So you have to work together collaboratively with those same goals, be open-minded, be able to explain, whether it's the same thing over and over, finding a different words, different avenue to explain that. So coming together to be successful, to move forward. It's not always going to be my personal beliefs that are correct. It's going to be a representation of both and all as we come together and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Tori, would you like to answer?
Absolutely. Besides raising 3 kids, that was probably the biggest beat so far. Early on in my career, I had a ton of success, and I would realize that success came from me doing all the work. That's not very sustainable. You need to teach people how to fish. As an executive for the company I work with now, I can make people do things, but that's not very sustainable either. People need to be part of the solution. Interest-based bargaining is something I've been part of with the school district for the last 8 years. We are currently in bargaining with our unions now, and it's an interesting way to really understand people's story, their perspective, what their interests are, and what we're all trying to solve for, and bring those ideas, perspectives, and stories together and find a solution. And when you do that, that's sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Kathy, would you like to answer?
Yes, this is a great question. Well, in another board service role that I have in the community, I serve on TriMet's board of directors, which I think everyone knows TriMet as the public transportation provider for our region in Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington County. And just recently this week, we passed our bargaining agreement with ATU, our bus union. And that has been quite an achievement. It's been a long journey and a long road to get there, to reach that agreement. But we had to compromise, we had to listen to both sides, and we had to do what was best in this particular situation for not only our bus operators, but for our agency and for the community who relies on public transit. So I was really proud of reaching that agreement together. In terms of the school district, I was very fortunate to be a part of several focus groups and community forums around the Student Success Act. We know that this was going to be a huge educational budget opportunity to receive more funding. And I just remember sitting at a table with parents and people who weren't parents, and educators and counselors and English language learners, talking about what does success look like for our students. And all of us had different ideas. All of it had different ways of going about it. But at the end of the day, I think we all achieved common ground for that, what that could look like. So I'm proud of that work, and I'm proud to continue to having those discussions where we can bring people together, even though we might have different opinions.
Kathy, thank you. Muted myself again. Okay, we will move on to question number 4. And this comes from Michelle in the Adrian Nelson neighborhood. And she asks, how will you support our children that are marginalized in the schools? And we will start this one off with Mitzi.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think the Student Success Act that was passed has 3 buckets, so I'll call it that, or accounts. And each of them are, the first one is early learning, and that has about 20% of the funds. And that's really important to hit the age that kids are first learning to hear sounds, read, and it's part of the programs that we have in early learning, works with the parents also. That is a key, that we need to support the parents, give them the resources that they need to be the best parents they can. Another part of that is there's the student investment account, and that has mental health, that has it's the bulk of the supports, the cutting class sizes, and many other supports that we need. So I think making sure that we address all the needs when the kids are coming back. There's going to have to be summer engagement. There's going to have to be credit recovery. There's going to have to be some enrichment activities. So some of those supports will come from state funds and from federal funds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mitzi. Lars, would you like to answer?
I apologize. I don't think I heard the question clearly. And would you repeat it? I apologize.
The question is, how will you support our children that are marginalized in the schools?
When I think of marginalized children, I think of maybe children that aren't being supported the way that we are. I think I want to support our teachers as a shoot, this is really hard to say, but as a trauma survivor, I understand what it's like to have people that have complete total control over you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I want these kids to be back in school. They will get back in school, but I want the teachers to be aware of what to look for in these children. And there are mandatory reporters. They're going to help us, and just get them the help. So when we talk about mental health, I specifically mean, are they showing trauma symptoms specifically? There's going to be a lot of other issues, but bringing them back in. And I think as far as other marginalized children, for the older ones, once again, I just want to be accessible. I'm not the highest educated person. I don't have a bachelor's degree, but they can go where I go. They can do anything. So I got a little flustered. I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Tara, would you like to answer?
Supporting our children that are marginalized. I'm a firm believer of early intervention. My first child was actually in ESD since 10 months. So I understand that commitment, that advocacy, that voice for that child, still today in a 504 plan. So being able to have those services available. Of course, I want school 5 days, but in the event that isn't something, I would like to see our scheduling better. The way it is now with 2 days back to back, they have a very long weekend. Those kids that need that extra help, that advocacy, we need to be able to see them more often. I think also those marginalized, those who've had low attendance this last year, that those are the ones we need to connect with. We need to bring them back and help them. Also those with second language for English, they're also in special education. With this time lost this last year, it can actually be equal to more than the school year. It could be up to 2 years. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Tori, would you like to answer?
You bet. So yes, we definitely need to have early identification. So so we can tailor our early childhood learning opportunities. We need to engage our students of color, our students with disabilities, students who are emerging bilinguals, students who are navigating poverty and homelessness in foster care, and there are a lot of them. We need to, when I say students, we also have to include the families of all those students. We've done that through our youth truth surveys and our parental surveys. And Mitzi mentioned earlier the student investment account. We had programmed to have a tremendous amount based on those surveys of mental health services in our schools. And the plan will be to fully fund those once we're all back in school in the fall. And if anyone would like more information on that, you should reach out to the school district and talk about the student investment account and how many counselors that we're putting back in schools from the elementary to the middle to the high school. And the partnerships that we have contracted with mental health services is amazing. And it's sad, but we do have it's not the only solution, but part of the solution to combat this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Kathy, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. I think that, all of the answers have been really great by other folks. So just to build on that, I think that we really need to center students' voices and experiences, particularly students of color, especially students who identify as LGBTQIA+, and students who might be houseless. We know that it is important to bring their perspective and bring their experiences to the decisions that we make as a school board. I've been very honored over the last several years to attend this Latinx student unions, Black student unions, the Gay Straight Alliances meetings at various high schools, and to really listen directly to young people in terms of what their needs are, what their struggles are, and how can we as a board either pass policies or create more programs or funding opportunities to really meet their needs. So I think it's important to really center the student experience and voice. I think secondly, I think we need to work closer with those teachers and counselors who work so closely with our students, because they understand what a lot of the students are going through. So I think in addition to supporting students and their voice, we need to support the teachers who are really the frontline workers that are also helping. And then last but not least, I would create more leadership opportunities for those students to step up and form, again, after school groups or clubs. I know that our API students, thank you, led a couple of those things this year virtually.
Thank you, Kathy. And then John, would you like to answer?
Yes, I would. Thank you. First of all, our marginalized students have been hit hard the most by being home the extended amount of time that they have. Some people's home environments are okay and others are not. And our delay in getting back to school has harmed the marginalized people the most, the marginalized students. When we get back, I think we need to we have a fair amount of CARES money coming in, and we need to use that money to bring on more counselors, more training for people to look for the signs that others have mentioned that will tell you if there's an issue with the child or they're being marginalized. And then, one of the things, we got to look for the quiet kid, the signs and the symptoms of this, and pay attention. And we need to support the counselors as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we will go on to question number 5. And this one is from Julie in Milwaukee. And she asks, there's a huge need for more mental health help to be accessible in our schools. What things will you do to get more mental health into all of our buildings? And we will start that off with Lars.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about mental health. I would like to see a full-time counselor in each school, specifically with the students coming back. I I think that there's going to be a lot of trauma from some of the students that are not in these positive homes. With the CARES Act and some of this other budget, I definitely think that a good portion of that should be spent on these children. Not everybody is sitting in a Zoom, caring enough about their kids to that they don't need the help. It's the parents that are not sitting in the Zoom that probably won't vote for the school board, don't know what's going on, that they've lost their job, they're not working, they're taking it out on their kids or their foster kids. I will do everything in my power to help these kids. It's really difficult for me to even think about where they're at. So I kind of choked up a little bit. I apologize, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Lars. Tara, would you like to answer?
That huge need for mental health, I think that's always been ongoing, a service that needs to be available. We've been blessed to have our local bond levy that passed a couple years ago. That was to save either school days and or add counselors. So to be able to utilize that more. And again, going back to scheduling, I'd like to not see those children not have better access more days in a row with such a large break. With mental health, it can be with anything, depending on what your background is, where you're coming from, and it needs to be an awareness that all students need to be embraced. We need to be able to listen to their voices, listen to their parents' voices, realize that they're going to have questions. Everything's not going to be the same. It could be the same. We're going to need to help with that mental health, establish a routine, create empathy. And it just needs to be all encompassing and all of us working together as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Tori, would you like to answer?
Sure. As a parent who missed many warning signs, so did other adults in her life. And so we need to fully fund this student investment account. And I encourage you all to contact the district and better understand it. We are fully funding mental health services more than we ever have. It just didn't happen during the year of COVID. But besides funding it, is we need to make sure that all staff, not just the new ones in terms of mental health services and counselors, that all staff or all adults in these buildings are trained and are ready to respond and intervene when it's appropriate. And I also want to make sure we're not just talking about students here. We're all human, and those include the adults in our building. And we need to be able to help spot that. This has been a year of trauma, or 18 months of trauma, not just for students, but for educators and staff who do their best work when they have kids in the building, and they haven't had kids in the building, and they're not feeling very successful right now. So it goes both ways.
Thank you, Tori. Kathy, would you like to answer?
Sure. I think in addition to having specialists like the mental health counselors, school psychologists, social workers that we are already including in the student success investment account, we also, I think, need to talk about culturally specific mental health care because mental health can also be a stigmatizing topic for many of our families and communities where they may not know how to access mainstream, or just English only services. So I think we need to pull back another layer and talk about culturally specific mental health services. I also want folks to know that we have really great school-based health centers in each of our feeder systems where we are providing access to healthcare, again, access to counselors and mental health professionals for our students. And I unfortunately know that, a lot of our students have been accessing that, as particularly over the last several months. But we have school-based health centers that I think that we can continue to promote, that we need to continue to well staff and resource. And then last but not least, I think we really need to talk about what does it mean to create an inclusive and welcoming environment for all of our students, and also talk about bullying, because a lot of our students are getting impacted by either online bullying or physically, verbal attacks. It's just been a very volatile environment for many of our students. So those are the things that we need to continue to work on.
Thank you, Kathy. John, would you like to answer?
Yes, I would. As a parent, I've learned to advocate for my children. And as a coach, I've learned to advocate for my my players and speak to them and listen to them and talk to them about their lives. It was great to be back with them this spring. To do this, I'm only one person, but we need more people who are doing this. We need to bring in counselors to support our students and their families' needs. There's many children where school was their only safe place, and they haven't had that for a year. Those kids are going to need someone to listen to their experience and find them additional support where they need it. They need to be back in their safe space together. And lastly, there's so many teachers that care, but they haven't been able to see their students as well. So we need to be prepared for the wave of just mental trauma that kids have gone through over the last year, and we need to have counselors in place ready to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mitzi, would you like to answer?
Yes, thanks, Stephanie. I think, there's been some great answers, and I just want to add that, helping the students, it's been a tough year, but not only for them, their family, and addressing the food, the homelessness, all of those things affect our students. Even driver's license, even though they can attain them, there's still many hurdles for families, and the kids feel those stress too. So making sure the student success is fully funded, because the number one goal under there is mental health. When the Ways and Means went to all the regions in the state to hear input from communities, mental health was up there for everyone, the staff and the students. Again, it's been a rough year, but we need to address those, make sure that the resources we have, again, are known to our parents, but continue to build on those resources. We have family engagement specialists that we added because of the student success, social workers, counselors. We used to have one for every 400 at the high school. That's too much. I mean, and they're mostly just talking to students about their schedules. So we still need to include more. PCLA has had forums on how parents can talk to their students, their child, about mental health, and look for those signs and help them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. All right, we have made it an hour, you guys. I want to thank everybody for hanging in there and doing this. I know this is a lot, not only our candidates here, but also those of you that are watching on YouTube. We really appreciate you here, and we know that you think that these school board elections are important just as we do. We will go ahead and continue on with question number 6, and this comes from Parker in Milwaukee. And they ask, what issues do you feel are the most important for the school board to address to help support students in the LGBTQ+ community? And we will start that question off with Tara.
I think the issues that are most important for the school board is that of curriculum. It needs to be embraced. It needs to be heard. We need to realize that people have questions, and it needs to be taught inclusively. We need to go back to the basics, go back to having that open conversation. It needs to be equal a status and rights and opportunity. And with that, again, that curriculum, it needs to be addressed. The parents need to be part of that engagement. It needs to be open, and to have affinity groups, have other opportunities for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara. Tori, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. I would say that as a board, we need to have policies in place that don't marginalize those students or anyone else. One's sexual orientation is none of the board's business, but discrimination is, and we need to make sure we don't have that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tori. Kathy, would you like to address that?
Yes, I'm really proud of our district's progress around serving LGBTQIA students. We actually, on our website right now, you can go and there's a guidance for serving gender diverse students. So I encourage everyone to read that. There we have outlined our equity policy. Again, that's really rooted in affirming every student's culture, identities, backgrounds. And what I wanted to also highlight is that, we know that unfortunately bullying and harassment, students who identified as LGBTQII face larger amounts of being bullied and being harassed because of their identities. And that's why I think as leaders, as school board leaders, we need to speak up for all students. We need to make sure that all students feel like they're being welcomed and that they're being belonged. And I'm glad that there was a mention of curriculum earlier in the conversation. We also need to have textbooks and curriculums that these students can identify with. So I think that we need to continue to make on the progress that we have already started. And I also think that, again, it's about centering student voice. And so we need to have gay, straight student alliance groups who are comfortable talking to our school board meetings, who can share their experiences with us. And as adults, I think we should continue to listen and prioritize, again, what marginalized students and communities are experiencing in our district.
Thank you very much, Kathy. John, would you like to answer?
You're on mute.
Thank you, Tori. Missed my mute button. I think all students need to be included in education activities, no matter what their, no matter how they identify. And the board should continue to have a policy of non-discrimination, and students should be able to be involved in whatever sport they want or other after-school activity. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mitzi, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, thank you. I'm remembering one of the facts that we found out from the Youth Truth Survey was that LGBTQ students suffered higher mental health, and we need to provide those safe spaces at our schools. We need to be sure our curriculum includes kindness, respect, and that we have the affinity groups, and above all too, that our policy has that safety for everyone, no bullying, and the protections that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. Lars, would you like to answer that?
One of the things that is actually really helpful for me as I was looking up some of the surveys that were coming out was the equity lens, and not being maybe as highly educated as some of the other people. It's a good opportunity to review maybe preconceived notions on how you view things. It's a critical value of mine that each individual child is cherished for who they are. They need to know that the way that they are is all right. And if they're being bullied because of whatever their outward appearance is, I think that the school board needs to know about that. As far as for policy making, if I was elected to the school board, I just would ensure that we use that equity lens and policy to make sure that those other groups are not marginalized and that their voices are heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lars. All right, this next question comes from Brenda in Clackamas. And she asks, when the COVID crisis is more under control, what lessons from this experience can we apply to make traditional school models more accessible to all students and families? If your focus is on getting kids back in classrooms, once that is done, how will you advocate that it is equitable, safe, and accessible for all? Tori, we'll start with you on that one.
Didn't have a chance to write my answer down, so I'm going to ramble. We've learned a lot of things during the COVID crisis, and the biggest, or maybe not the biggest, but my middle daughter is a teacher, and a new teacher. This is her third year. So she didn't even 3 years ago learn how to teach through the computer, right? So our teachers have been on a path like this, and along with our students. And I think it's actually probably been a little easier for our students to adapt to the technology because they're on their screens all the time. And so once this is over, I think we'll have learned there's opportunities to provide students that need more resources than what can happen during a school day, more learning experiences and more educational opportunities. Along with, you are going to be sick. You will be absent when you're a student. And if we can figure out a way to record lessons and lesson plans and teaching, and they can go back and review that or view that. Well, maybe review it. Maybe they were there. They just want to watch it again, right? Or if they were absent that day, and they can tune in and get those lessons. And so the teacher's not doing rework when the kid comes back from being sick for a day or two. That's going to be pretty cool. And if we can provide those services, either the Wi-Fi and the device, so all of our students have an opportunity or wouldn't miss out, I think that's going to be real special for our school district.
Thank you, Tori. Kathy, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, this is a great question, and also just a very big question to answer in about 90 seconds. So I'll try my best. I go back to our job as a school board member, and that we are really the district's administrators in making sure that we have classes that are equitable, that meets the needs of all of our different learners, and that we're really engaging parents and communities so that we can meet our metrics outlined in the strategic plan. So this is a really great question because we actually have a current strategic plan that is 4 years from 2018 to 2022, really rooted in equity, engagement, care, integrity, excellence. And one of our charges as a school board member in the next 4 years is to develop a new strategic plan that will outline what are the overall goals, again, mission, vision, and metrics and outcomes that we want to see together as a school board and as a district to implement. So I'm really excited to developing that with students, with parents and teachers, and as well as with our administrators, because this is truly a team effort. And I'm really excited about the possibilities that this new class, the new classrooms will look like post-COVID. We learned a lot of great valuable lessons in terms of how we can utilize technology during this time. And I think we can build upon, again, increasing technology and access so that all students can reach their potential in and out of the classroom.
Thank you, Kathy. John, would you like to answer this?
Yes, thank you. So what can we take from COVID and use it in the future? It's interesting, this whole pivot to work from home, school from home. It was so sudden and dropped on us so quickly, but we've learned so many things about it. And one of the things that we can do is, one thing I've noticed with my employees at work is the employees that were absent for medical reasons on a some sort of recurring basis, they're in the office, working from home in the office for much more regularly now. And there's children out there that have medical conditions that are intermittent, and right now we can, with the new technology and this adaptation to online learning, when that child isn't feeling well, they'll be able to take that, attend class virtually. It's easy to deal with upset stomach if you can lay down for a few minutes. It's harder to do that in school. So I think that is the number one takeaway, is that we can leverage this technology and this shutdown into a way that we will drastically increase our attendance rates. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mitzi, would you like to answer this?
Yes, thanks, Stephanie. I remember a couple stories that some parents conveyed to me, and one was, and since I was a math teacher too, I think that's an area that it's difficult, and that's an area that I think I'd like to focus on and try to increase our scores. But she said her son was struggling, but he was doing better online because, again, he could go at his own rate. He wasn't comparing himself to other people. So I think the flexibility, if we can be more flexible, hang on to the technology. But again, we need to be sure that everyone has that access and continues to access with Chromebooks and hotspots and connectivity. And when this first happened and schools were closed, that was our first battle, that and food for our families. And we've been pretty good. North Clackamas found the money. They just said we had to do this because that was a huge barrier to learning. The other thing I think we learned is that everyone hopefully is learning to appreciate our teachers. They've had to learn 2 or 3 different models. And I heard another parent say that she was listening to a class. It was an opportunity for everyone to know more what goes on in the classroom. And she said the teacher's patience, the way she questioned and worked with the students was something she had no knowledge of, but she's totally respected. And she said, I think I can take some of that and working with my student at home, my daughter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. Lars, would you like to answer this?
I think takeaway after this time for me would be how difficult it was for my wife and I to help my first and second graders. So we're really hoping that this doesn't happen again. I think last night it was probably 7:30 when we got done playing a math game, and it was bedtime. But I appreciated all the extra time that I got to spend with my 2 little girls, helping them with their school. I really appreciate what the teachers do, because they are professionals, and I appreciate their dedication. I appreciate their education. I appreciate their training for what they do that I probably didn't quite appreciate beforehand. So I apologize if there's any teachers out there if you didn't feel like you were appreciated. Talking with my neighbor, the distance learning or the virtual online learning has really worked out for a lot of people. So I'm really curious to see who's going to want to continue that even after full-time kids go back to school. It'll just be an interesting experiment, and it'd be after it's all said and done, come back and use lessons learned and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Tara, would you like to answer that?
I think the lessons learned from COVID is where we were, where we're going. We're more prepared, but we still have more work to be done. We need to keep pushing. It's been a hard year for everyone. Absolutely. It's been emotional. Parents are now more mindful how to move forward. And we've had those previous challenges. We need to value and recognize the hard work that we have had, research and listen. So with that being learned, choices. We have choices to reopen the schools 5 days. We have had choices to have the CDL learning And we've had choices to have the VOP learning. In fact, that's doubled for this next year. So having those choices, we need to keep our parents, our families in our community. We don't want people moving away, doing an online charter school, doing private school. If you take those children and those tax dollars away, if you want to do easy numbers, 1,000 kiddos, $7,000 per year, those are huge numbers. So I think we've learned there's choices and those need to be given and are rightfully deserved to be given. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. All right, we will move on to the next question, which comes from Deb in the Milwaukee area. And she asks, should North Clackamas School District continue to support and expand options for students at Sabin-Schellenberg Center? And Kathy, we'll start off with you.
Yes, a wholehearted, 1,000% absolute yes. We need to continue to support Sabin-Schellenberg Center, as well as increase, the over 15 different programs that already exist. I've just been really proud in the 4 years that I have been on the board to expand additional programs such as coding and more technology into Sabin-Schellenberg, so that more of our students are ready and prepared to learn in the 21st century environment. I also really want us to even think a little bit bigger and think a little bit broader in terms of other course offerings and programs. So 2 ideas come to mind. One idea is to build our health sciences program, but make it a little bit more multidisciplinary and include public health. We know that with the COVID pandemic crisis, many of our hospital systems were stretched very thin, sometimes to the brink of just collapsing. And so I think we need to continue to talk about ways that community health and public health can also help in the health sciences field. So that might be an opportunity. And then secondly, I want us to continue exploring the green economy and the green jobs that are going to be created in the next several years as an opportunity to maybe, again, expand those careers, particularly for students right after high school. So yes, absolutely to supporting, expanding all of the programs and offerings at Sabin-Schellenberg.
Thank you, Kathy. John, would you like to answer that?
Yes, I'd love to answer that. We totally need to expand and support Sabin-Schellenberg. Kids who go there even just for a class have higher graduation rates. I think if we could find a way to grow it into a campus where children are there half their time, that would be great. Salem has their CTEC, where students are there, they enroll in there at the end of their sophomore year, and they become, they're there for their junior and senior years, where they spend a half day learning the CTE skills in their their program. They spend a half day there on Monday, and then they spend Tuesdays and Thursdays there, or Wednesdays and Fridays. And if we could expand our offerings to do that, that would be tremendous. Right now we're at capacity, and we definitely need to grow that. And I think we can do it like Salem did, and do it through a public-private partnership. Over half the funding for their CTEC came from a private entity, and we need to leverage those opportunities in our district as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mitzi, would you like to answer?
Yes, thank you. And my answer is also yes. Continue to support and expand. And I think one thing we've done really well at too is asking our teachers, asking our students, what are those classes and what are those jobs that lead to good wages. We have lots of connections. We do have lots of partnerships. And we also have lots of skill building programs. We have the FFA, which is a totally great program that teaches kids leadership. We rebuilt their sheep barn, and that agricultural program there has always been so successful. but FFA is just a great leadership program. DECA, we have robotics club, we have ProStart, the Scrub Club, which has to do with health ops. And there are quite a few partnerships there already. I'm sure we would like more, but I think there's close to 70 some. So there's quite a bit going on there. They can do credit, dual credit, college credit there, internships, and there's lots of course prerequisites. So we have a great program. We have fantastic teachers there and that have come from the field, and they're working very closely. The graduation rate there, I think, is not the graduation. Yeah, the attendance is 92%. I think if kids take, no, it's high graduation rates of 92 for those who take 2 or more classes. Excuse me.
Thank you very much, Mitzi. Lars, would you like to answer this?
I love the Skill Center. At least that's what they called it when I went there back in the 90s, early 90s and late 80s. I took auto mechanics down there. I learned how to weld, rebuilt a snowmobile. They had the people doing, had a little snack stand so they can sell stuff and count their money and do business. It was really a high point for me to take the bus from Milwaukee and go out there twice a week for those classes, if I remember right. I would like to expand on it a little bit, talking with some of the outreach people, at least with the IBEW. I've been reaching out to some of the other skilled labor unions, and what would be the opportunities for a direct to apprenticeship program, having them maybe be a little bit involved. I would have to be a little careful with that because I am very pro union labor, and I'd want to be inclusive to people that maybe are a little bit adverse to that. I don't want to create an environment where parents are uncomfortable because of my labor associations. But yeah, Skill Center, I mean, I love it. I'd like to see somebody come in and show them how to bend conduit. I mean, we use geometry every day to do intricate bends. The sheet metal workers, I don't even think I could do the math that they have to do all their stuff with everything. So love the Skill Center. We'll support it 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Tara, would you like to answer this one?
The Schellenberg Center being expanded, it has been expanded phenomenally all these years. I, as a kid, also saw it change. In fact, the East Campus used to be my junior high. So it's been wonderful watching those programs being added. What was already mentioned, photography, culinary, PACE, items that have always been there. What I'd like to see with it being expanded is advertisement and accessibility. When I was a student, it was considered an elective. Electives were also language, the fine arts. So I, even though got to experience it through my older sister with forestry, 11 years older, and through the ELC Child Center with my kiddos, I never got to take it because, again, I had those other desires of foreign language, fine arts, whether it be band, music, theater. So I'd like to see that accessibility with it being as an elective, also advertised to the public to get those relationships to work together and help provide any additional tools, resources, donations that could be used. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Tori, would you like to answer this?
Yeah. First off, we need to make sure that the 18 programs of study are appropriate and relevant today. Second, we need to make sure that the accessibility issue is not a problem. The last data that I saw, we had much more East Side students accessing Sabin than the West Side students, and that was true when my kids went to school. So we need to figure out why they're not able to access it. And we need to forecast better. And what I mean by that is this is just not a technical program, and I'll give you a little story here. So my oldest daughter wanted to be a teacher, so she enrolled in the early learning childhood program. And my middle daughter wanted to be a doctor, so she enrolled in the health sciences program. They completed their program at Sabin, both of them, And what did they do? They went complete opposite. My oldest daughter is like, I don't want to be a teacher. She graduated from Oregon State with a health and sciences degree, health and human services degree. And my middle daughter, who did the health sciences program at Sabin, she became a teacher. So we saved a lot of money, trouble, and time because they had an opportunity through public education to figure out that they didn't want to do something that they thought that they did. And we need to make sure all kids are able to forecast for those programs if they are interested in going to college in one of these areas and have an opportunity to experience it, along with those that want to get technical experience so they can bypass college. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tori. All right, I'm just doing some quick math here. Okay, we will do one more of our backup questions before we move on to the final question. So this next question comes from Jennifer from the Adrian Nelson neighborhood. And she asked, do you support school-based health clinics, and what role do you think they have in school and community? And John, we will have you start this one off.
See if I can find the unmute button. I hate going first. I like to think about my answers. Of course, I support school-based health clinics. People need to have access to healthcare, and it used to be just the nurse's office you went down to, but I mean it's obviously grown. And so yes, I support the school-based health clinics. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mitzi, would you like to answer this one?
Yes, totally support them. And it's just been great to see how they've grown. And again, all of our families have access to them. We right now have 2 that are open. The one at Milwaukee has been here the longest, and then we opened one at Putnam High School. But with the bond work that we've done, we're able to, Clackamas High School will have one, and Adrian C. Nelson will have one. So we'll double the opportunity for kids to not only get medical help, counseling help, dental help, and they can go in and on their own, make their appointment and talk to a health expert right there at school. They don't have to leave, get on a bus, get mom to pick them up or whatever. So it's just helped, again, eliminate one of those barriers. It's so difficult to think of trying to learn without COVID when you get sick. And now, COVID is even more of a concern, but if you have a toothache, I can't imagine the pain and trying to concentrate if you have a toothache. So we have quite a robust program, and I'm excited that we're doubling it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. Lars, would you like to answer that question?
I think it's a great idea for kids to have that access, and I'm really glad to hear that it's expanding as much as it is. Because of just my personal upbringing, the only concern that I would have is just making sure that parents are aware of what's going on. I know that if something happened to my daughter or anything else, I just get a panic. If she crosses the road to get the mail, why didn't you wait for dad? So absolutely, I think it's wonderful. Just the overprotective portion of me would just like to make sure that parents are just notified of what's going on with their kids. And it's not founded by anything in concrete, but I'm just being honest with my personal fears. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Tara, would you like to answer this?
I do support the health clinics being available for the basic items. I know that our dental can offer and have up to the cleanings. I think your generic health, but my concern is anything that the parents aren't being involved, whether this is an offshoot from health class, again, curriculum, depending on what people's beliefs are, their ethnic backgrounds. Are they sneaking something from their parents? Doesn't matter where you come from. it needs to be involved, and that child is still the responsibility of underneath their caregiver. So I think that's an unclear question as to what the health clinics can, will, and do provide, what they will communicate due to HIPAA laws. Does that apply, not apply? So I think my answer is a little in the middle. I would support the idea, but I would definitely want more clarity of what's available and how that's communicated and how those parents are involved in those choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Tori, would you like to answer this?
Absolutely, and I absolutely support school-based healthcare. A sick child or a child in pain will really have trouble studying or paying attention in class. And I was so happy when we received the news that we were expanding the program to dental. I don't know when the last time you went to work with dental pain, but it's difficult to do. And when you think about dental, good dental care is essential. I know firsthand of people who've been discriminated against because of their teeth. And if we can teach that earlier and more often, we might be able to create some good habits and prevent someone from being discriminated when they need to get into the workforce. I also would love to see us expand the mobile unit so they can go to middle and elementaries, and it doesn't have to be, sick, but we use it as an educational tool. We might have, I'll never forget when I asked my youngest daughter what she wanted to be when she grew up, and she said a nurse. And I said, why do you want to be a nurse? And why don't you want to be a doctor? And she was, because I'm a girl. She'd never seen a girl doctor. And so if we can get some of these medical providers out into our elementaries that look like our kids, we might have some more gender identification with those fields. Thanks.
Thank you, Tori. Kathy, would you like to answer this?
Yes, I do support school-based health centers, and I was actually there at the Rex Putnam opening, the ribbon cutting ceremony of that school-based health center when it opened, and it was just amazing to see, to walk through the different rooms, the examination rooms, the front desk, the reception area, and it was just such a welcoming place. I think that it's important to continue to, again, amplify and lift student voice, particularly in our school-based health centers. I was able to connect with the YAC, which was the Youth Advisory Committee that's based in Milwaukee and Ma, and they actually held a Healthy Relationship Summit this year, all virtually, where they talked about what they needed, particularly for, again, gender diverse students to feel safe, to feel like they can have access to resources. And so it was just really great listening to them in terms of the specific needs that they wanted to see our district provide them with. I think that we need to continue to make on the progress that we have made, especially around comprehensive sex education that is age appropriate, that's also medically relevant. Our district is a leader in the state when it comes to providing that education. And we know that when students receive that at an age appropriate level, that it helps them have healthier relationships with themselves and with their peers, as well as with their families. And so I will continue to support that. And again, I will continue to support students' voice in the decisions that they make, along with, of course, bringing their parents along.
Thank you very much. All right, we will move on to the last question for the evening. And I want to remind the candidates that you have 2 minutes to answer this question. We felt it was it's a big question. So, but we felt it was very appropriate to end the evening with this. So once you are elected into office for your 4-year term, what are your top 3 educational priorities? How do you plan on achieving them? Why are these the most important to you, and how do they align with the current North Clackamas mission and strategic direction? I should say that is from Emily in Milwaukee, and I will go ahead and repeat that one again.
Can you put it in the chat, Stephanie? Would that work?
Yes, I can do that. And I'll repeat it again real quick. I'll copy it. And that's a great idea. Let's see. Chat, everyone. All right. So once elected into office for your 4-year term, what are your top 3 educational priorities? How do you plan on achieving them? And why are these the most important to you? And how do they align with the current North Clackamas mission and strategic direction? Mitzi, you have the pleasure of going first on this one. Again, you have 2 minutes.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. At least I'll be over before the others. Well, I'll sound like a broken record, but right away, I'm still going to be lobbying for the 9.6 billion that COSA and other districts and superintendents are saying is the number that we need for stable and adequate funding for Common School Fund. That's current service level. Otherwise, the governor and the Ways and Means have come out with 9.1. That's a $500 million cut. And again, that's to keep our programs and our teachers. The other one-time funds are spent on the needs we had before COVID, and then the needs that we are having as we come back. So my first priority is working on that. Second is, as we get the kids back, and we've got to get them back on track. There's interrupted learning. We need to give them the supports they can as soon as possible, make use of the summer funds that we have. And when I said that's childcare, that's credit recovery, engaged activities, summer enhanced activities, and continue to raise then use the ESSER funds. And I think we have longer to use that to look at what programs really work. And some of that was that virtual online program that we are doubling. We found that kids do learn better, or it works with their jobs, or they may want to continue to be safe. The numbers that actually came back for hybrid were higher than 50% for the younger kids. But by the time they got to high school and juniors and seniors, it was less than 50%. The last one is caring for students and staff. Not that I'm, making that last for that reason, but make use of the funds that we have to be sure that we are getting the mental health providers and helping our teachers also, because everyone has had a rough year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. And Lars, would you like to answer that?
I think my first one is pretty simple. Obviously, I'm going to focus on trade opportunities because that's what I know best. And being a kind of a blue collar middle class worker, we struggle in my trade to get qualified applicants. So apprentices come in, they don't even have the basic math standards to meet the minimum requirements for apprenticeship. So I'm not saying that all kids are this way, but I think I have a different perspective than maybe others. I mean, I live this every day. I want to also highlight the fact that because of where I'm at, my pay, I'm paid the same as any other gender or any other race. We all have equal footing where we're at. So it's an opportunity for me to show equality in practice. The other one, so I really am concerned about the younger kids. I want to, like everybody else said, is how are we going to get them back on track? I'm not going to say this too long, so I don't want my first grader to hear. If she's upstairs, hopefully she's in bed. We're worried about her having to repeat the grade again. She really struggles with math, and that's why I mentioned earlier that I really appreciate the teachers. We've struggled with teaching her. She's very stubborn and following through. So getting the younger kids back on track. The third one is just trying to be helpful in the budgeting process, trying to add, my life experience, my experience with contracts. So if we are locked into a certain amount of budget, I would really like the opportunity to help the school district find some extra money, maybe do some value engineering on projects. I'm sure a lot of them do, but sometimes just having another set of eyes that are coming from a different angle might be beneficial. So I hope that I could help out. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Tara, would you like to answer this?
Yes, if elected, my three priorities would be academics, athletics, and extracurricular. All three of those items create community of being back in school on campus 5 full days, athletics, having that camaraderie, that team sportsmanship, learning to work together with others, extracurricular, whether it be the fine arts, theater, again, that community to make us stronger as a school district. We want people to stay here. We don't want people moving away. Those items will also help with the mental health. It's physical, mental, emotional. It'll help with calming anxiety, just having options, meeting new friendships. Every student's not going to be college bound. And so this is going to help with other life skills that they can take with them, learn with them, friendships. So again, academics, athletics, and extracurricular to bring us together as a whole. Some of these items, it is going to be our budget. That's a working document. Things are going to change. Our summer 5.0, the funding from the 5042, that's going to be a helping step. So we can look at that. And then again, just it will make us stronger, keep that strength, and continue to move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Tori, would you like to answer?
So I would invite anyone that's on the watching is to go to the district's website. We have built a strategic plan, and I would challenge anyone to find any kind of fault in that. It's a great plan. You know, the board has one employee, and that's the superintendent. And that our job is to ensure that the superintendent follows through with the strategic plan that we have collaboratively with their cabinet built and executed upon. We need to continue to increase graduation rates for all students. That goes back to our goal of student success. We need to, by advancing learning and focusing on each student's experience and well-being and their potential, not just what that is, but their potential. We need to continue to work on our equity. We have built an equity policy and practice that's second to none within maybe even the United States, but I won't go that far, but for sure in Oregon. And that goes back to our goals of cultivating belonging and inclusion with the expectations of success for each student. And I'll go back to the word expectation. We need to expect or have high expectations for all of our students. And then we'll go back to resources. We need to continue to lobby for our fair share of the general fund. And when we don't get it, we need to budget for what we're going to get. And that goes back to stewardship. We need to utilize the resources that we get the best way we can, following our strategic plan that we have built together with the community's voice, the administrators, and our superintendent, who is our one employee, and make sure that we follow through on our promises. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Kathy, would you like to answer this one?
Yes, if I was elected to 4 years again, I want to create a vision that focuses on the success of our earliest learners to our graduates who are getting their diplomas. So my plan is there's three things. One is to focus on early learning as well as expanding childcare opportunities. I know that this year has been difficult for many families to juggle and balance taking care of their children as well as doing online learning. And so we need to continue to create early learning opportunities so that our students are ready for kindergarten. And I think that starts with community partnerships. We have made some progress already, but we are not yet finished in that work. So the second thing that I want to continue to focus on is high school graduation rates. We have 87% high school graduation rate, which is higher than the state's average. I am very proud of that achievement. We've been able to make that progress across across the board with our students of color as well, but we need to do more. And in order to get to that point, we need to specialize in dropout prevention services, as well as investing in support programs, academic support programs that work with specialized populations so that, again, the support can be tailored and specific. And then, of course, expanding on our CTE and partnership opportunities. And then last but not least, we need to continue making on the progress around equity. And that includes hiring a workforce that reflects our students and our communities, especially our students of color. We need to retain teachers that are going to be the best educators for our school district. And we need to have curriculum that reflects the stories and the cultures and the different languages that our students are coming with in our district. So I think by doing all of that, we can create strong, healthy neighborhoods, and we can truly be a place of learning, inclusion, and equity in our district and hopefully in our state.
Thank you, Kathy. And John, would you like to finish for the night for us?
Yes, I would. Just going back to the health center question, one of the reasons why I think that is important is I think kids need access to personal care products and other products that would protect them from STDs. I forgot to mention that earlier. As for my three things for the end of my three priorities, we need to support the success of all students, whether they're going to college or the trades. We need to expand that trade education. Students aren't going to college, or some are, but the ones that aren't need that opportunity to be able to go straight into a trade or trade school. Secondly, we need to work on improving our professional development for teachers. There is a lot of learning loss that's coming out of this next year, and we need to have our teachers prepared to deal with that. We can use our CARES money to invest in additional training for the teachers so they are ready to deal with this tsunami they have coming. And lastly, I think we need to develop our public-private partnerships further. We need to partner with organizations in the community that are invested with our children, and they will provide them with opportunities when they leave school. So, three top priorities: success for all students, professional development for teachers, and public-private partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, thank you everyone very much for hanging in here with us and answering some very tough questions from our community. Thank you to the members of our community who submitted questions. It was hard to pick which ones we were going to put forward, but as I mentioned at the beginning of the night, there were some very clear themes that our community was focused on, and we felt these covered them the best. So I want to remind everyone that ballots are due May 18th for this election. And if you fill them out and get them in as soon as possible, that relieves some stress of having to worry about it. If you do not have your ballot and your voter's pamphlet yet, you should be getting them any day now. I believe they were starting to be mailed out yesterday. So look for those. I encourage you to go back and review this recording at any time if you need to. It will remain up on YouTube, and encourage other community members to come forward and watch this so they can hear where our candidates stand on these issues. If you want to reach out to the Parent and Community Leadership Alliance, our Gmail is pcla.ncs@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/pcla.ncs. And if you type Parent and Community Leadership Alliance, North Clackamas Schools, I know that's a mouthful, but if you type that into Google, we are the first that will pop up, and it will take you straight to the superintendent's page talking about who we are and what we do. And we would love to have anyone that is interested in the community involvement join us. So looks like we're going to wrap up just a couple minutes early tonight. So thank you all again very much.
Stephanie, I just want to say thank you for the PCLA, and it's unfortunate that not all the candidates took the time to be on tonight and share their views. So I appreciate those that took the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori.
Thank
And
you, everybody.
thanks again for those
Yeah,
candidates that
Thank
could
you,
not.
everyone.
Thank you all. And Kathy.